Hi, Ungym Learning Network. Kat and Kayla here tonight to work with you as we go live with our Twitter chat. So if this is your first Twitter chat, we'll be sharing our screen and giving you some tips to get started. So we are just waiting for our first question to go live, and I'll show you, I'm sharing my screen here. I usually set up a couple things before I get started. One is I actually like to tweet live on Twitter. So I like to have a Twitter window open. And then I also like to use this really cool app called TweetDeck. And I'm going to throw that in the chat here for you. So if you want to log in and check it out, you can jump in there. You can actually also schedule tweets. So I'll let Kayla explain to you how she was able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the same TweetDeck, when you go to compose a new tweet, there's an option to tweet now, or you can schedule. It's the middle option right there, and you can put in any date or time. So I went ahead and scheduled my tweets for tonight. So they'll all be coming at a certain time. So it looks like magic.
Awesome. And I'm going to use it to send out my first tweet. If you haven't yet, introduce yourself to the Twitter community. So I'm just putting in my name, where I'm from.
Yeah, absolutely. And your favorite candy, that's the question too. And then while you're doing that, Kat, you can see Marcus, our special guest moderator for tonight, has already launched our question one, our first question.
Oh, awesome.
Asking everybody, how can Google Classroom be used as a space for collaborative learning? And then like magic, there's my response.
Ooh.
Oh, of course, your favorite candy's Kit
Of
Kat.
course. Let's see if there are any images or video. Oh, I don't have one put in. This is why I prefer to use Twitter, because you can actually grab some cool graphics, which I'm going to do here in a minute after I launch that tweet. Mm-hmm. So if I come back over here, I've actually kind of typed out the tweets that I'm going to share, which maybe not something that you've been able to do. I just happen to have an advanced copy of the questions. But that just helps me engage with everyone. And then I go to Twitter. I can paste in my tweet. And then here, I really wanted to select a picture or a GIF or an emoji response to really kind of elevate my post a little bit. So I thought that we would do.
That's great.
Discussion. Let's see what's happening here. You know, you always want to self-select a little bit. Maybe instead of discussion, we'll go with learning, see what comes up. There we go. I kind of like this one. This is how I feel like when I'm on a discussion board, because there's just so much to read and not enough time. So I'm going to send it out. Remember, when you're formatting your tweet, you want to use A1 is answer, and the 1 is for the first question. So your next response will have A2. And then at the end, you're going to include the hashtag. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is so important. So let's go over here, and you can see I'm searching the hashtag over here. So as they come up live, you'll be able to see them so you can respond to people and engage.
Yep, and it looks like we have Kristen Klinger. Her answer, giving students editing rights to a single document within an assignment sparks the ability to collaborate on work. It is important to review positive peer interactions prior to collaborations. And she did that just by retweeting Marcus's main post and giving her answer there. So that's great.
Yeah, that is really cool. Let's see if we have any others. Here, let's read yours. I love to use comments in Google Classroom to facilitate collaboration. Comments can be private between students and teachers. Now, this is a cool little trick because there's a limit on how much space you can use when you're typing on Twitter. And although that limit has extended a little bit since the early days of Twitter, it still can be a little difficult to get all your thoughts in. So you can use S for student or SS for students, T for teacher or TS for teachers. So it's like little Twitter chat trick there to save yourself some space. So Kayla says students and teachers or comments can be public to facilitate a class discussion or showcase a thought process. These can easily be used for both remote and in-person learning.
That's great. I always run right up to the limit how many characters I can have. I think I just talk way too much sometimes.
Nice. You're funny. I actually thought that was the perfect response. Mine are often really short just because I want to include all the pictures and the GIFs and all the fun emojis. And I did actually also embed a couple of links. So Joe has joined us from Houston here. And she says she works at Leadership Academy and her favorite candy is Gummy Lifesavers. So I thought I would reply to Joe, which by the way is a great way to make your Twitter chat interactive, not just posting your answers, but engaging with each other, and ask her, did you bring enough lifesavers to share with the whole Twitter chat? Little teacher humor there. And we have some more folks joining us here. We also have Jonathan Davis from Wisconsin. He works at Grow Academy, and his favorite candy is Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Oh, that's a good choice.
Yes, that's my favorite too.
That one is my favorite mix-in. Oops, I can't spell. All right. So one thing that's really cool about TweetDeck is that you can create these little columns here. And so as things are updating, I have my ULN that I'm following on the left. Then I'm also following anyone who tags at Team Borders. I'm following anyone who tags me. And then I also have our user account over here on the right. So this just gives me a couple different ways to make sure that I don't miss out on anything. It's kind of like Twitter FOMO, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we have our second question out. Do you want to share that with folks? And I'll get my response ready.
So our second question from Marcus is, what are some suggested strategies for teachers developing a workflow to remain organized with Google Classroom?
Perfect.
What are some suggested strategies? And I think you can do a lot with that. So I talked about topics and how to create a weekly resources topic at the top of the classwork page to kind of place the most important information or the information that needs to be easily accessible for students. So that was my response to that.
Awesome. I said I love to use numbers and letters with my assignments. So when I'm loading the content into Classroom, I like to label like 1.1, 1.2, or 1A. That can really help students understand what order the items kind of flow, but also help them create some checklists to complete their work.
Yeah, and you can also see with our hashtag ULN, this is how we're tracking who's kind of joining in this conversation. And it doesn't matter where you put hashtag ULN in your text. So mine, just as a organizing thing, is at the beginning, hashtag ULN-A2, because usually by the time I finish my thought, I forget to add it. But Kat does a great job of adding it at the end. So it doesn't matter where it is in your text, it gets put inside of our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also like if you're not using TweetDeck, right, and you just want to search it, you can come over here and type in hashtag ULN. And this is actually quite an interesting feature because I think sometimes people forget about all these little headers up here. So the first thing you're going to see when you search a hashtag or even a person's username is the top post. So this may not be the most current post. It's going to be the post with like the most integration or whatever based on Twitter's newest algorithm determines it to be at the top, right? And as you scroll down, you'll see posts based on that algorithm going down in order. But next to it, you have latest. So when I'm doing a Twitter chat, if I don't scoot over to latest, I might miss something. So here are the things that have been most recently posted, and you can see here she has 37 seconds. So Kristen shared, topics are essential for organizations. Simply hit plus create and topic to start. You can then add assignments, questions, and more by topic. When making topics, think of how you organize your classroom. Organize by date, unit, or activity type. Those are some great ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you can also, I think the goal of Twitter chats, because I know when I started really paying attention to them, I would get a little overwhelmed and feeling like I have to kind of respond to everything at once. But you really don't. This conversation is viewable at any time. So if you really would love to talk to this one person about topics, like she said, and comment with her and you miss the next question. It's not, I don't feel like, and Kat, you can chime in, but I don't feel like you have to answer every single question. But you definitely try to hit as many of them as you can. And then also just reading through what other people are saying. And that's where the community aspect comes in.
Yeah. And I think to extend that community, sometimes after a Twitter chat, when you'll see here in a moment, I have a couple tweets that tag like outside entities, like other companies who work with Google to provide integration tools or other great tools that make learning more visible. And so what's great is as I tag them, they may not immediately respond because it's at night and they're probably not managing their Twitter right now, or hopefully they're not, but they will respond tomorrow. And so it just keeps the conversation going outside of just that short window of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on top of that too, even though like we've set this up to be 30 minutes long, some people are going to continue to respond to each other maybe for the next, hour or something like that. So it doesn't mean like at 7:30, it's like, oh, done. The conversation's kind of extended. Yeah. And in saying that, I think we have our third question up.
Awesome. What are some suggested strategies for students developing a workflow to remain organized within Google Classroom? And Kayla and I just had an opportunity to see this in action. So I'm sure you will know why I'm posting this, but I'm also going to upload a picture of it so we can take a look at it. And this is the new Hapara student dashboard. And a lot of spaces that we work with use Hapara as a monitoring software. I love Hapara because they do a great job of building a product that's really centered around digital citizenship, and it's not a gotcha tool. And this is a great example. So I'm going to hit tweet here. And what's cool is you can see if I go back to my tweet over here is that I tagged Hapara in my tweet. Now, sometimes it can be hard to guess the name of the organization that you want to include, but one handy way to know whether or not you've selected the right organization is that it might have that little check mark next to it. Mm-hmm. So I noticed that when I was tagging KitKat earlier, that if it had the little blue check mark next to it, I knew that meant that it was actually going to be the right website for KitKat, because back in the day, anyone could have gone on and made themselves at KitKat, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful who you tag in your post. Yeah. Let's check out some of the different things here. If you're engaging in the conversation, you might see your notifications are going up. And when you click on them, you have some different options. One shows you all your notifications, and it depends how you have your notifications set up. But these are generally when people reply to you or tag you in a post. And then over here are mentions. So that specifically means that you are part of that conversation, as you can see here. Should we read out some of our answers?
Yeah, actually, Marcus is doing a great job as our guest moderator. So he came up with these questions and he created these graphics. So he's kind of in charge of facilitating the conversation. And so he's also trying to come in and respond to everybody and like answer his own. So he just responded his A3 at the top. For him, a major starting point is teaching students the relevance of folders, tags, and deleting irrelevant files. Just as with teachers, students would benefit greatly from using color coding, labeling, and checklist in Google Keep. And he called himself a taskmaster somewhere else in another response to somebody. So he's obviously a very organized person that loves to, do checklists. Like I think he and I are the same kind of person. So I definitely think that Keep is a great option. And I think Hapara is a good thing that is used in a lot of our spaces too. Because really Classroom, I think, struggles for students to be organized inside of Classroom itself. But if you combine that with Google Drive, like Marcus is saying, I think it's definitely possible.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great idea. Also, I love because he wrote back to me and mentioned about adding Bitmojis into the naming convention of your folders. And I love that. As often as I can, I try to include Bitmojis. It's just a nice visual reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that, especially in our mainly virtual world now. Sometimes it's the only time you can see someone else's face, is with their cute little picture.
Yeah, definitely. And then we had also here, Kristen said, teaching students to utilize a planner, whether that will be a tangible planner or the use of a Google Calendar or Keep, is important to plan for completing work. They can also be sure to click on view work to ensure that their work is done. So that's a great strategy. You had that too. Students can click view your work to see what is due, missing, or returned to help them stay organized.
Yeah, inside of Classroom, I think that's really, without adding any third parties or any other programs, if you're just talking about Classroom, I think view your work is the best option for kids. Awesome. Just to see what they have missing, coming up, returned, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll probably have another question coming up here soon, so I might go ahead and copy my next one. In this one, I decided to use a link to a resource. And so I've tagged an article, but unfortunately, due to the limit that for URLs, you can't just put a URL in your tweet. And so what I did was used a bit.ly. If you Google bit.ly, you can sign up for a bit.ly account and you drop your very long URL in there and it makes a shortener for you that redirects the person who clicks on it back to the original link. And so that's a great way to add resources and bulk up your post, is to add links using a bit.ly.
Yep, that's great. So his fourth question is, what are strategies for providing on-demand feedback within Google Classroom? So, and we only have 6 questions and we're 20 minutes into our 30-minute chat. So these 30-minute Twitter chats go by really quickly. But something else you might want to do is, if you see someone who's responding and they have some great ideas, you might also just want to click on their name and follow them. They may be someone that you shares content regularly that you would find helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take a look at what that looks like. So in looking at the people that are using this, I'm going to scroll down here. I know I already follow Jo because we've done a lot of Twitter chats together back in her early days of Unjammed. But I actually don't know Kristen. I think she's a friend of Marcus's. So I'm going to follow her because she has some great ideas. And let's see what other ones pop up. I know Jonathan was in here earlier. So I'm going to look and see if I can find his and make sure we're following him as well.
I think he commented on that first picture.
This one?
Yeah, no, the right on time question one, I think.
Okay.
The one about the candy, or the question one, I can't remember, but he commented. Which is where maybe
there we go.
Yes. Great.
Awesome. And as we do these more and more, we'll make a list that you can follow. So you can start to build your Twitter followers and add more people based on the folks who are participating in the Unjam Learning Network.
Yeah.
Kristen says, managing notifications to ensure that you receive feedback when a student turns in their work to support timely response. Give yourself a requirement for providing adequate feedback, whether that be an acronym like SMART or a 3-comment minimum. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I like that. Marcus says he uses, he's been a fan of doing quick check-ins with Google Forms, but he also finds Google Classroom is great for private exchanges between students and teachers. So that's great. And I think you and I, Kat, both talked about the comment bank option.
Yes, I'm super excited about this. So I shared a resource here. Where you can learn about building up your comment bank so you can draw from that. And put those ideas right in there. It's so helpful because very often, you know, when you're teaching a subject area you've taught before, the comments are going to be the same over and over, and then you can obviously just adjust them as needs be. Yeah. Oh, I like this. Kristen said also just being available to respond to students as they need it with office hours or popping into their working documents to provide support. I don't think that's what my kids call it when I pop into their working documents.
No. But you can, you can comment directly inside of Google products. I think Marcus mentioned that somewhere too. So you can directly, highlight some information and tag a student just to say like, hey, when they open the document, then they can just see the comments on the right-hand side. And you can talk about, if it's a paragraph they're writing and you want to focus in on grammar or writing techniques or something, you can do that in the comments on the side.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree. Let's see here if we go back and see if we have any new.
We should have another question loading any minute now. And I think we're doing 6 questions tonight that Marcus curated. Yeah, and here's the next one. How can students create content with G Suite tools?
Awesome. So what did you say for this one?
Oh gosh, I think that the options are limitless, right? When you talk about all of G Suite tools, that's really, kids are so creative and they can do so many things. So I am in love with Slides Mania. So I actually tagged them in my response.
Oh, nice.
Because I think if you talk about or think about Google Slides, there's so many templates that you can use, like choice boards, which as part of our ULN, you might see some of this in our November forms content, but any kind of templates for game boards or choice boards or anything like that is great to allow students to own their learning and have choice and voice and all of that. So I think the options are limitless with what kind of content you can create with G Suite tools. So that was kind of my response.
Yeah. And we have someone else here, Latanya Collins, joining us. She says, I'm not proficient with Google Classroom, but would it be safe to say adding in some notes and comments to immediate work and student view? So I think that absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be really, really important. And there we go. I was going to say, I haven't seen yours yet. You talked about Slide Mania and the choice boards. For me, it's Google Forms. I think that we really haven't developed as many ways students can use Google Forms to benefit themselves. We're always focused on teacher-centered. So teachers pushing it out to students as opposed to students designing Google Forms to help themselves in class, potentially creating their own reviews or reviews for each other. And I think too, because they can make them self-graded, it would be really helpful for them to review the content and sort of create that themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Joe says students can use docs, sheets, or slides. And I definitely agree. I'm going to go back here and check this out. So I can, I am going to mention, don't forget about Draw. Google Draw is my
So Kristen just responded, let students make connections with content by creating with Google Drawings, using images, emojis, colors, and text to show their learning. So you have a Google Draw fan.
Yes. Awesome. I'm going to go like that right away. Awesome. I'm going to retweet with a comment over here. I mean, there are some features that I like and I think eventually they'll come over time. You know, like right now, one of the most challenging things for me is that there are things I'd love to add to my Google Draw that I can only do in Google Slides, but I think eventually those things will be available. So I'm really excited to see where the tools evolve over time, especially, and no one's talked about it yet, Jamboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really excited to see what they do with Jamboard.
There's been a lot of templates coming out with Jamboard and things to do, like specifically within them, that's just really creative and clever.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Just checking out all the notifications. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's me too. I use it for some of my own creations as a coach.
Yeah. Marcus says, I'll keep this one simple with 2 words, Google Drawing. I love that.
It's everyone's favorite tool.
Yes. He says, however, I've come to love the flexibility within Google Slides. Have you ever tried tall tweets?
Okay, funny story. This came up in my office hours this week. I was working with an art teacher in Massachusetts, and we were talking about how she could use tall tweets to potentially create some animation in her classroom and staying with inside of the Google ecosystem. So I pulled like just one Bitmoji and I moved it on each slide a little bit in every direction. And as soon as I did that, I ran it through tall tweets and she saw it turn into a GIF and she was like, oh my gosh, my kids would have a field day with this. So I'm super excited. We're going to try to get it unblocked there so they can access it. Oh, we have our final question.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to jump in here. Now I've also tagged someone. I've tagged 2 people in this tweet. I've tagged a company, but I also tagged a person. So I'm hoping that she will respond. And I'm actually going to put... I like this boom one here. Okay, so I picked Soundtrap as what I would highly recommend using with Google Classroom. It integrates really well. And I tagged our good friend Audrey because she always has the best ways to integrate. So I'm hoping she'll see this. And folks will reach out to her for some great ideas. She has this Padlet, Kayla, and it is just chock full of ideas. It's amazing.
Yeah, I cannot even imagine. So Jonathan Davis is commenting on Marcus's main tweets, and one of them for answer 3 says he has no experience with Google Classroom, but I saw a student had over 1,000 emails. Teaching organization is important. Can't imagine.
Wow. Well, I like that you said Classwork Zoom is a really amazing tool that allows teachers to see a timeline of students' work. This tool would be very helpful in engaging students during distance learning, and they have free options for teachers. So tell me more. I've actually never heard of this.
Yeah, actually click on them. I think they have a, when you go to their thing. So they actually will, it's kind of like a third-party hidden thing that runs inside of Classroom, and they'll show you like how long a student spent on a specific document or just general timeline type things. So you could really say like, hey, you know, this student and I chatted about really giving more effort or, you know, kind of taking their time on things. Maybe they're rushing, and this kind of gives data behind like how long are your students spending on assignments without having to go into the actual document and do version history or things like that.
Wow, love it.
I love data. I'm a nerd through and through, but you know, it's just great to say, hey, think about if you spent 5 minutes on this essay, how much better would it be if you spent maybe 10 minutes or 15 or something like that?
That is awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, our first Twitter chat was a success.
That's great. And he gave us some great information on his last picture too, that what's next for his action call. So if you follow that KSUI Teach, I think that's the college where he's a part of, and he just gave some links and different things of really like, here's your charge, start small and that kind of stuff. So it was really great.
Oh, here it is. Great. I'm going to follow it right now. I hope you guys will as well. And I'm just going to check my notifications one more time, so I don't want to miss anybody that I might have ignored, because we definitely don't want to ignore anyone on our Twitter chat, though it does happen sometimes. And thank you guys so much for joining us. I know our last Twitter chat was pretty interesting. But we made it through, and I'm excited for those of you who are watching and maybe haven't started participating yet. You just wanted to get an idea. Maybe next month you join the chat and still tune in live to watch what we're doing here. It was really fun kind of chatting with you. I've never chatted live with anyone during a Twitter chat.
I haven't either. This is a new experience.
I kind of like
a new meaning to the live portion.
Yes, it does.
Of the chat, but yeah, I loved it. It was awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.